Portland City Council has just voted by a 3-2 vote to join the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is a joint effort between local police agencies and the Federal Bureau of Investigations to try to head off threats of terrorist violence in our own communities. And it's a very hard call. There are really two words that sum up the conflict I have and that I think a lot of Portlanders have about this issue. One is ashamed and the other is appalled. I'm ashamed of my national government because we've been conducting wars without proper justification, we've been imprisoning people without trial, and we've been using torture. It's awful that we can even say that word in association with our own government, but unfortunately there have been those terrible decisions at the federal level, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations has been a part of some of that wrongdoing, in my opinion, wrongdoing. So I'm ashamed of what's happened nationally, but I'm appalled at this terrible violence, this radical evil that we see in the world. You know, back at 9/11, when the World Trade Center in Washington, D.C. was attacked, that was an attack on the symbols of American power and murdered a lot of innocent citizens and civilians. But you could say it was a symbolic attack that had a terrible, tragic carnage attached to it. We could look at that and say, well, maybe that wouldn't really affect Portland. But now, if you look at Paris and Copenhagen and Boston, you see people who are attacking their own neighbors, murdering their fellow citizens of their city. And I say that's a new and even more terrifying outbreak of this completely immoral evil that knows no boundaries of who it can harm. So what do we do about that as little old Portland? I think what we do is we work in cooperation with the federal government while not being party to the things that don't match our values. So we will assign our officers to work in this Joint Terrorism Task Force arrangement only after the Chief of Police and I both look them in the face and say, you work for the City of Portland, you follow our laws and our direction as the police chief and the police commissioner, and if there's ever a moment when our values as a community conflict with what you're being asked to do by the federal government, you are not only encouraged, you are required to come to me as your commissioner and to him as your chief, and we will make sure that those values and you are protected for doing the right thing. Under those very carefully limited circumstances, I think it's best for us to share information and to therefore, I hope, make Portland a little bit safer in what's obviously a really unsafe world.